Hello and good morning, all. Welcome to SchoolTech Innovation Conclave organized by APAC News Network. This is the second edition of this prestigious event where we see the presence of thought leaders from the school education ecosystem along with industry leaders and innovators. And it is indeed my pleasure to welcome you all in the inaugural of second edition of SchoolTech Innovation Conclave. The theme of the inaugural session is how education institutions can navigate uh, post-pandemic economy with the help of technology partners. And for that, we have education leaders with us for the inaugural session. Let me introduce to all of you. We have with us Mr. Roshan Gandhi, CEO, City Montessori School. We welcome Mr. Roshan. Thank you so much for joining us today. We have with us Mr. Abhishek Rathore, COO, Sanford Group of Schools. We welcome Mr. Abhishek. Thank you so much for joining us today. We also have with us Ms. Kavita Mathur, Associate Director, Academics, Velamal Group of School. We welcome Kavita ji as well. Thank you so much for all of you for joining us today. Before we start the session, let me just give a perspective that it is said that market size of tech in India will be touching around $10 billion by 2025, and the paid tech users by 2025 will be around 40 million. That's a huge amount of volume we are speaking about. And if the tech market has to go, it has to grow with along with the school education leaders and the tech players coming together for the betterment of outcome in terms of school imparting school education. In this context, we are organizing this event which will focus on various aspects of school education. We have sessions on significance of new gen technology in school education, adopting a blended learning model in school education, and also effect of national education policy on youth empowerment and sports development, along with industry presentations. And I would also like to take this opportunity to thank our partners, technology partner Microsoft and digital transformation partner Avaya for making this event happen. And with this note, let me start a discussion. Let me first go to Mr. Roshan Gandhi. Mr. Gandhi, we all know that we are still going through a pandemic, uh, though it's going less and less by day, but still there's always I always say that we are still going through the phase of pandemic, but the schools are opening, right? After a gloom of 2 years, 1.5 years, the schools are opening. So, how do you see the schools are managing the overall growth of the children impacted by the lockdown, and how technology can be an enabler in that? Your thoughts on that, please.
Yeah, well, good morning, and thank you so much for having me. Thank you to the APAC network. And yeah, it's a very important question. How are we handling the transition back into the schools? How are we helping the children? How can technology help that? I think first and foremost, what we are recognizing is the level of learning loss that has taken place for a lot of students. And schools have made tremendous effort throughout the pandemic to keep the children engaged through online learning. Teachers have done a huge amount of hard work to master the online learning tools and try to keep children engaged that way. But even then, it's just not been possible to uniformly keep all the children fully involved in learning throughout, either because the children or the parents are not cooperating with online learning, not taking it seriously, or maybe because some children are lacking in the requisite devices and connectivity. So even in relatively good, well-funded, high-fee paying schools, there's a lot of variability within sections, within classes, for how children have performed throughout this period. And as a result, there needs to be a lot of recognition for that, and a lot of efforts made by teachers to differentiate the learning in such a way that the ones who have managed to somehow keep learning well throughout, who are maybe a little bit ahead, can continue on that trajectory and continue to be challenged to their abilities. But the other ones who've fallen behind need to be supported to catch up before rushing ahead with new topics and the following year's syllabus. Otherwise, they will end up with a permanent falling behind. The other thing is that, of course, the trauma that a lot of children have faced has to be recognized. And it doesn't necessarily show in a very obvious manner when you're just talking to kids, face to face. So teachers need to be trained and sensitized to be able to understand the deeper issues that children might be facing after all of this time spent at home, spent in a closed environment, spent without socializing. A lot of teachers have been reporting that they have observed that children are not able to interact in a class interact with their peers, interact with their teachers with the same confidence that they used to, because they've been sitting behind a screen all this time. So how can teachers support the well-being of students? How can teachers enable children to reconnect in a socio-emotional way with their peers and with their school environment? This has to be a high priority for all schools to address. And I think, a lot of schools had already fortunately been investing in, the idea of psychological counseling and having figures in the school who act as counselors. But we need to go beyond that now and not just have the designated counselor, but have certain amount of training and support where every teacher can be someone that supports the socio-emotional learning of children as well as their academic learning. So these are very high priorities. I think when it comes to the role of technology, on the one hand, if anything, technology at this particular transition point, we may want it to take a back seat because, the problem has been spending so much time behind the technological screens that now the priority needs to be getting people back into the, getting children back into the habit of interacting with people face to face. I think we really want to encourage kids to come back into school and spend time with their peers as much as possible. Having said that, of course, the use of technology all this time has shown certain advantages potentially. There are certain powerful ways that technology can help. And so as we move forward, we expect to see a lot of experimentation in terms of new models of learning, perhaps different types of hybrid models of learning where certain portion of the teaching and learning process can take place online. For example, core delivery of content, core imparting of syllabus, what we might call the traditional chalk and talk aspect of teaching that has to go on can go on online. And then the school environment, the face-to-face setting, can be utilized for newer and better pedagogies, such as peer group learning, project-based learning, experiential learning, all of the learnings that will develop the skills and competencies that go beyond the traditional ways of learning, the traditional rote learning, memorization-based way of learning. So in that way, a hybrid model can potentially facilitate more efficient skills-based learning. But a lot remains to be seen in terms of how schools will experiment with making that possible.
Right, right. If I take a crux of what Roshan has said, that the high priority should be re-engaging students to the school environment in the physical mode, and also at the same time, I beg your pardon, and also at the same time, how well we can use technology, maybe for content delivery, curriculum, and hybrid models of other things can be also leveraged at the same time. So it's like a balancing both the physical mode and the technological aspect, and there also the technological solution providers will have some say in the school education as well. Because again, yesterday I saw news that in China, again, one or two cities are going under lockdown because some new virus have come. So you never know whether that will again come to India or not, whether the schools will be again go back to the online mode. So that threat is always looming large over to us. So let's hope that doesn't come to us. But I think we have to have a mix of both online and offline classes in near future. I'll come back to Roshan. Let's have a perspective from Abhishek. Abhishek, your thoughts on this? That how what should be the priority areas for the school administrators when the schools are reopening, and how technology can help in that?
Yeah, thank you, Souvik ji, and thank you for inviting me back. My major take is that in these 2 years of pandemic, there are three losses that the children have gone through. First of all, is the mental health, the mental well-being that is need to be taken care by the this school itself, as well as the physical touch, the physical learning that they used to have. Now, because of this pandemic, we all were sitting at home, and we were unable to do anything as such about it. So I personally feel that the teachers as well as the parents needs to understand, the institute needs to understand that the growth in the physical as well as especially the mental health, the loss that these children has been through, it is actually affecting a lot in the learning process of the child. So I personally feel that institute like schools like us, we need to work more on the mental well-being, the EQ level of the children, as well as, of course, the physical learning should also be there. The physical activity should be there. So as recently we have majorly schools in Delhi and UP. So from 14th February onwards, the physical learning started. So with that, what we are trying to do in our senior schools, we have introduced meditation and as well as yoga. So I personally feel that these things are important now more than ever, because these 2 years, the children are unable to even comprehend. Their social skills are only limited to virtual world. So the reality that is there out there, the real world they've not seen. And there's so many COVID babies also, as we are that we are also chain of, we have a chain of preschools. So we can see that 2 years or 3 years of old children, they are unable to comprehend, they are unable to sit with the peers. So as Roshan sir rightly said, that there should be more of a group learning, that should be there, or core delivery of learning should be there, right? So I personally feel that all the institutes should work on. I believe that most of are doing that. Mental well-being as well as the physical activity should be increased.
Right, Abhishek, I'll just take a cue from what you've said. Yes, indeed, the mental aspect of students is most important in this phase, because we have seen, as you have said, 2 year, 3 year, 5 year old people who um, were under lockdown in their home surroundings and not going to school. The mental issues will be there, and we all have to come together to get rid of that stigma. Uh, but at the same time, you also talked about the group learning methods and other things, so that students are again in a re-engaging mode with the peer learning and all those things. But I would also like to know from you that how do you think that the technology can help in this overall scheme of things, and where do you see the technology partners coming together with the school ecosystem?
Right. So recently, I would also like to share with you that Sanford has recently introduced AR curriculum, or augmented reality curriculum. So in which as we have seen that technology is helpful in these 2 years. Only because of technology, we were able to deliver our education to children whatsoever. But obviously, there were a lot of glitches, there were a lot of issues, and hats off to the teachers that they've done so much of work. But yeah, so with this blended technology, so with the AR curriculum that we've introduced, all our books which are in 2D form are are already converted into 3D. So they would also get the touch of the tech, which is, I mean, there should be a proper balance between the traditional learning as well as the new tech that we have introduced. So I personally feel that there are two things: the traditional learning, in which you can normally the teacher used to teach, and apart from that, you can say the information that the children are getting, the information, because now they are more tech friendly, or they can Google everything. So the information pattern is increased. So I personally feel that schools should have that. They are already doing that. So the schools should have the proper hybrid learning, as well as they should take the information from the internet, and they should blend it into their curriculum.
Right, right. The power of augmented reality, that's how it is helping Sanford Group of Schools. I'll come back to you, Abhishek. Let's have
Yeah.
perspective from Kavita Mathur. Kavita ji, your thoughts on this, that what should be the priority areas while we're talking about reopening of schools, and how leveraging technology innovation can help in that?
So, firstly, let me thank you, Sovikji, for getting me on board this wonderful platform. Very good morning to everyone. At Velamal Schools, so let me just give a little perspective of Velamal Schools for everybody to understand how we've dealt with the situation. We're a group of more than 20 plus schools across Tamil Nadu, across metros, across B level, C level cities. So the challenges are not necessarily the same at each school level. But we have to come together to come and decide on a common solution. So now, when we come back to the school, I think the challenges need to be addressed at very basically three levels: the physical, the mental, and the cognitive development of the children. So, let me first talk about coming back. We have introduced something, and there is a slight difference in how we approach schools, academics, and education in Tamil Nadu vis-a-vis how things happen in Delhi. So, there what we have introduced is compulsorily 15 minutes. Children have to be on the ground, either doing yoga, aerobics, or something as basic as a stretching exercise. That's how the day begins for every single child from KG to 12th. We've made it mandatory because that's one thing we felt physically the children are not as active as they were 2 years back. They need to have some kind of a physical engagement. That is the beginning of the day. But through the day, also, we have a lot of activities which engage children physically. Mentally, yes, that I think we've spoken enough. Mr. Abhishek and Mr. Roshan both have spoken a lot about it. I won't go it. We are doing a lot of programs on that. Cognitive, again, what we have done for cognitive is we've gone down to the basic skills. We have actually gone back. We've realized that the biggest casualty of this COVID era for the children was their reading, writing, and comprehension abilities. Uh, like Roshan rightly said, the good ones anyway are ahead, but what about the average and the below average? So, what we've done, we've put a lot of focus on the reading and writing skills. Practically every subject has to have a component of reading and writing activity every day. So we've actually pushed the focus from syllabus completion, rote learning, and concept clarity right now to bring them back to their expected levels of reading and writing and comprehension skills. Uh, Talking about how technology can help, I think I would agree we need to give technology, put it in the backbench for some time where students are concerned, but definitely technology is a huge enabler helping us understand how to move forward with the children. I'll give you a very simple example. Like we have our own LMS in the Vellamal group. We have created diagnostics tests for both primary and pre-primary children, and of course middle school also, to help us understand at what level the children are. Because you see, in the past 2 years, in spite of COVID, we opened 6 new schools. Now, new schools means children are coming from very different backgrounds. We don't even know what their learning standards were before they came to us. And we've only been teaching them online, though. And we did have a very, very robust online program. We covered ECA, we covered co curricular, everything was covered in that. But in fact, we were very lucky because you see, last year in 21, when there was a lull before the second wave, we did open schools for the senior school, 9 to 12. We managed to have them in the campus for about 2 months. And that was like a real eye opener when we realized that in spite of our best efforts, there were huge learning gaps which when children came back to us. So we have been actually working towards this reopening almost for the whole year, you can say. So we have these diagnostic tests. We have these. We have also created a bridge program kind of a thing where we are actually not moving them forward. We are only kind of recouping and recovering what was lost. Now, in this, the technology really helps in creating personalized programs for groups of children, which is very difficult for children to do otherwise. And one advantage that we take of being a group of schools is that we understand each one's strength and weaknesses. And I'm not just talking about schools, I'm talking about the faculty members. Some schools might have very good faculty members with great ability to create fantastic activities for a particular subject. What we have done, we have split amongst the schools how we are going to work. So we've actually put collaborative working, learning, teaching, everything into practice, and that we are implementing through our LMS. So I would say technology is definitely helping, but not in the regular way as it has been for the past 2 years, but more like an enabler for the teachers to ensure the outcomes for the children.
Technology as an enabler. That's what Kavitaji was saying. That especially when it comes to personalized learning for children, that helps in that. And I'm also saying the same thing. I'm not saying that technology will be all
Yes.
pervasive, but we can think of technology as an enabler. And interesting thing you have said that 15 minutes on ground is mandatory for all the students, starting from Montessori to the higher level of students as well, and
Yes.
also focusing on reading and writing skills. Uh, I'll take one more question
And
from Kavita.
comprehension.
And comprehension. Yes,
And
yes, yes,
comprehension.
yes, yes. And let me also ask you this: that how are the faculties? We talked about students. How are the faculties are adjusting in the new dynamics after the reopening? Because uh, we're talking about students, but what about other workforce? That is the faculty.
Absolutely.
How they are also coping with the fact of coming to school after almost after 2 years.
So, as I take great pride in saying that before I am management, I am a teacher first. I have been a teacher for more than 30 plus years. So for me, I always feel that for a teacher to deliver whatever is expected from her or him, it is important to ensure the teacher's well being in every aspect, whether it is supporting the teacher with resources, whether supporting mental well being, whether supporting economically, any which way. I think it is very important to ensure that the teacher is equipped with the right skills to take their agenda forward. Having said that, trust me, it was not easy. After 2 years, there were a lot of them, because in the South, there are lots of teachers who are single parents by virtue of their other, like, their husbands or their wives working abroad. So we found that a lot of teachers had moved location during the COVID period. And now, for some reason, they don't want to come back. They found it's a better way to go about it. So we have faced that is one aspect of it. The other aspect of it is when teachers come back, they are dealing with their own set of problems. They are not equipped to handle the problems which children are bringing forth. So now, again, the best way to go about is to skill the teachers in whatever way we can. So we have put a very, very elaborate counseling program in place, and this has been going on literally, I would say, for the past 6 months, where we are counseling not only the students, the in groups and individually. We are also counseling their parents, and we are doing very special counseling sessions for teachers on how to handle students' problems and to how to handle their own issues. So that is one thing we are doing. We have a lot of motivation sessions. We try and do at least one per month for our teachers. And we have created a system where we try and address as many of their problems as possible. And when we and reduce the stress, like I just mentioned before, we have this collaborative working going very strongly. So the idea of that is that the teachers in one particular school don't have to do everything that they're supposed to do in the normal run of the day. Their work is distributed across 22 schools. That is how we are trying to facilitate. There are a lot of problems. I will not deny that.
Right, right. There are certain problems, as Kavita Mathur was saying. Roshan, your take on that?
Well, of course, there are always problems, and
And especially in
I
terms
think
of how do you think faculties are adjusting within the new normal now? When once again when the schools are opening, and almost 2 years of lull, they're all working from home. So how do you think that they are coping, and how, as a management, you are helping or enabling them for a better environment?
I think our at least in the experience with our schools, the faculties have been looking forward to getting back into the school. That's their natural habitat. That's where they feel most comfortable, most at home, and things work best for them in that environment. So they've not had personal troubles in terms of getting back into school as faculty and getting back into teaching. I think the troubles that they've been facing is with the kids, and as I said, in the first round, the troubles that sorry, I should clarify, with the kids and with the parents.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think, as I said in the first round of talks, when it comes to the kids, the teachers, we are supporting all the teachers to be aware of socio-emotional issues and how to identify those in children, how to refer children to the counselor in the right way, how to deal with matters of confidentiality, how to have those difficult conversations with children and find out what's going on in children's lives, and secondly, on how to be more effective at differentiated learning, how to use formative assessment to gather ongoing data, simple data about the students to make sure that, that it's just to understand the different levels of performance of the children in a class, and how to target the interventions to support the weaker ones to come up. With the parents, it's a matter of spending a lot of time with parents, sensitizing them and counseling them. And there's no other way to do it, really. There's no magic statement that can be given to the parents, or letter that can be sent to the parents, or piece of information. It's just a question of investing that time, sitting down with parents individually or in small groups, and really talking to them, understanding their concerns and their issues, making them comfortable, making them understand. It happens, I mean, when any change happens in a school, that's needed. I often give the example of how, when we switched our pre-primary English language curriculum to move away from the very traditional method, which a lot of schools were doing, including ours, which is to teach grammar in a very direct way, and to focus instead on wider kind of listening, speaking, reading, writing skills, not to teach the technicalities of grammar at such a young age, but to bring that in later. That's a research-based positive direction of pedagogy. Now, parents came up in arms because they are not seeing in their copybooks that, all the details are written down. They're saying, children are not studying properly. So, how do you deal with a situation like that? There's no statement that you can give to the parents. You just have to sit down with them and help them understand and show them what the reality is, and invest that time. So it's a large amount of time investment that has to be done with parents, and teachers, at least in my experience in our schools, are willingly investing that time, understanding that that's a challenge that has to be undertaken, and are doing it with full enthusiasm.
Right, right. I'll come back to Roshan Gandhi. Abhishek, if I may ask you that, if we talk about hybrid model of education, right? Uh, what do you think, or what are the new approaches for assessing students and measuring their learning outcomes in a hybrid model?
Could you repeat that? Your voice was
I'm saying
not
in terms
audible.
of if you talk about the hybrid model of education, how
Right,
do you
right, right,
measure the learning outcomes in terms of applying new approaches? Your thoughts on that?
right. So, of course, we need to understand one thing, that now the teachers are not just the you can say the facilitator. They are the friends. They are the counselors, and they have a much more important task to make a learning possible better, right? So what I personally feel that the learning outcome in the hybrid model, as I already told you, that we have developed an application of this augmented reality. So in that, real time progress of the kids can be seen while they are progressing through this in this application. So we can understand that this approach of hybrid model, we can understand that what the child is, where the child is at first. Secondly, the module proceeds only once the child excels in the first chapter. So we also for example, if there's a standing line or a sleeping line, so first that the child would learn standing line, then sleeping line, and then it reaches to L, right? So and another thing what I personally feel is that kids, parents, and teacher interaction is very much important. So collaborating with the parents, and understanding this, that hybrid model, because in past 2 years the teachers were just the a person behind the camera, right? But the parents, for these 2 years, the parents were the actual imparting the education to them. So we have to understand that both the blend of both the parents and the teachers is important. And I personally feel that this is how we should go about.
Right. Kavita ji, your thoughts on that?
Honestly telling you, we are not much into hybrid learning at the moment. We have, in fact, had parents insisting, so we don't really have at the moment anything really online where students we've actually told the teachers also to try. They're coming with very hands-on activities in the classrooms which engage children physically rather than getting into anything which involves a screen, and we've had no issues. So if you ask me right now, I would say we're not even into hybrid mode at all.
Right.
So
But
I
even if
I don't
even
know
if
if
we
I
talk
can comment on
about
it.
but even if we talk about physical mode of education where students are coming to
Right.
schools, there are a lot of areas where technology can be leveraged, right? As you talked about personalized learning.
Definitely we do plan. So like I said, where direct engagement with students are concerned, we are not, as a principal, we've decided not to engage in it for the next 2 months. We plan, like in the south, the new session begins from June. That's when we will probably rethink about everything. Right now, there's like within the school, we are using technology where students are concerned, maybe for some assessments at the most. Beyond that, we are not engaging. Where teaching, engaging children is concerned, we are purely not into any technology at the moment. We have a lot of technology. We've used too much of technology in the past 2 years. And in fact, parents are the ones who've come back with that, saying that please, at least in the classroom, of the classroom, do not give anything which involves a screen. So at the moment, we are not into any kind of hybrid formula.
Right, right. I'll end the discussion with the take with the perspective from Roshan Gandhi. Roshan, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, as I said in the beginning, although I endorse the high idea of hybrid learning in principle as something which carries a lot of potential, there's a period of experimentation that has to be undergone. And right now, that's not even the right time for trying that, because right now the priority is to get kids back into the school and back into the social emotional environment face to face. So we're not actively pursuing hybrid learning at present. We have certain goals in mind of how we want to introduce both blended learning and hybrid learning in due course of time. But that's not something that we are actively uh, doing right now. And frankly, I don't know of many schools who are. I'm in touch with the school leader community. I'm sure Kavita Ma'am or Abhishek both similar would have a similar experience, just anecdotally, that no one right now is really actively pursuing a serious hybrid learning model, apart from maybe a handful of particular schools that make that into their priority. I think the thing that everyone is trying to do right now is get kids into the classroom as much as possible, and then keep an
Absolutely.
open mind to hybrid learning as a future prospect once things have settled a bit.
Right, right. I think we all are hoping that let's take the kids back to the schools, and we're all waiting for that because this is where the students will flourish. Obviously, technology will be there as an enabler, but students coming back to school, there should not be any option than that. Thank you so much, Roshan Gandhi, Abhishek Rathore, and Kavita Mathur for joining us in the inaugural of the second edition of School Tech Innovation Conclave, like a crux of what we have discussed for the last 45 minutes or so. That's the high priority is to re-engage students to schools, focusing on mental health of these students, enhancing their mental health, taking note of that, more and more group learning, peer learning, and seeing technology as an enabler, maybe for personalized learning and to some extent for assessment. Let that be the rule of the game for next 2 3 months. I think on this note we can end this session. Um, Here, thank you so much again, Roshan Gandhi, CEO of City Montessori School, Abhishek Rathore, CEO, Sanford Group of Schools, and Kavita Mathur, Associate Director,
Thank you.
Academics, Villamil Group of Schools, who also happens to be a teacher uh, with a vast experience in teaching as well. Thank you so much, all of you, for joining us today. Take care. Do join us
Thank
for
you.
the next session at 12:15 today, Indian time, where we have an industry presentation by Dr. Vinny Johari, Learning and Skills Lead, India of Microsoft. Thank you so much. Do join us 12:15 today. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye.
Savik ji. Thank
Thank you
you
very
for
much.
having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.